Is Africa replacing the West with BRICS? Countries like Burkina Faso are becoming tired of being exploited by Western aid and their reliance on it. These African nations are ready for change as BRICS presents a fresh vision for partnerships. They want to liberate themselves and join coalitions that guarantee equality. Will these countries be able to make the shift without opposition, though, given the strong Western interests involved? What is France's reaction to this? Let's investigate. The brave decision by the West African country of Burkina Faso to consider joining BRICS has drawn attention from all across the world. In addition to being a geopolitical move, this decision clearly breaks with Burkina Faso's long-standing connections, particularly with Western nations like France. What, therefore, is the reason for this abrupt shift, and more significantly, why now? BRICS is an acronym representing a coalition of 5 major emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries formed the alliance to enhance cooperation and influence on global economic and political platforms, challenging the dominance of Western-led institutions such as the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. Many independent states have come to the realization that the entire international order has been disintegrating right in front of them. Internally, the nation has seen years of political unrest, security risks, and mounting discontent with its reliance on foreign assistance. The political landscape of Burkina Faso has undergone significant shift since the military takeover in 2022 that installed Captain Ibrahim Traore. Many in the nation link France's residual influence to its unresolved problems, especially its instability and lack of sovereignty, and the current government, especially under Traore, has publicly denounced this influence. France has historically had a significant presence in West Africa, particularly in former colonies such as Burkina Faso. The West has had considerable influence over the region through military actions such as Operation Barkhane and economic reliance via the CFA franc, which is closely associated with the French treasury. However, terrorism has increased in spite of France's long-standing military involvement in the Sahel. For instance, since 2015, jihadist organizations have been expanding their attacks against both military personnel and civilians, demonstrating the failure of the Western counter-terrorism approach. Frustrated by these setbacks, Burkina Faso has been looking for other partnerships more and more outside. Power dynamics around the world are changing. Emerging international players like BRICS are challenging Western supremacy, especially in Africa. BRICS provides an alternative to international organizations that are dominated by the West, as opposed to the World Bank and IMF. This change occurs at a time when many African countries are beginning to doubt their long-standing reliance on military and humanitarian support from the West. A wider tendency in the region is exemplified by recent coups in Mali and Niger, where administrations also turned away from France and the West. Burkina Faso's shift to BRICS offers a chance to break free from the Western aid for compliance paradigm, in which financial assistance is contingent on governance changes that frequently conform to Western values. Burkina Faso is expressing its desire to join countries that offer resources without any political restrictions by applying to join BRICS. One of the main BRICS members, China for instance, has formed numerous alliances throughout Africa and frequently contributes infrastructure development without requesting changes to the government structure. Why now? In geopolitics, timing is everything. The military regime in Burkina Faso is taking advantage of the West's preoccupation with domestic problems and international matters like the conflict in Ukraine. This gives Burkina Faso the freedom to reorient its foreign policy without fear of rapid repercussions from its long-standing Western partners. Furthermore, the military leadership can take action since they are aware that the world is looking elsewhere. It would be more than just a token gesture to join BRICS. Burkina Faso would shift from depending on Western economic and security models to alliances that offer reciprocal advantages, marking a strategic realignment. However, it is still unclear if this change would result in the economic expansion and security Burkina Faso seeks. Or will it just switch to another type of dependency, this time on powers in the East? BRICS presents alternatives to Western domination, but it is not without complications. Burkina Faso needs to make sure that this move to BRICS, this time with new Eastern powers, is a genuine step towards sovereignty rather than just another kind of external dependency. What, however, can BRICS provide Burkina Faso that the West cannot even match on the surface? It isn't able to, not because it doesn't want to. Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's continue. BRICS present a completely different strategy for collaboration. We are discussing an alliance of countries that have been left out of the conventional Western-dominated global power institutions. BRICS is more than just a group of business people. It's a group that genuinely wants to change the laws of the world so that everyone wins, notably Burkina Faso and other nations. This is the weak point for the West. It has a lengthy history of using neocolonial tactics. Western nations have been involved in what they refer to as development for decades. However, let's face it, it's frequently tainted with restrictions, covert plans, and a paternalistic attitude. The West does have resources, yes. However, its investments and financial assistance typically include conditions. The West's strategy has always been one of dominance and control, whether it is through trade agreements that force countries into dependency or IMF structural adjustment programs. Rarely do they offer assistance without anticipating something in return, be it economic leverage, resource access, or geopolitical clout. BRICS now provides something essentially distinct: the chance for Burkina Faso to develop free from the burden of reliance. BRICS wants Burkina Faso to be a partner, not a pawn in a geopolitical game. Nations such as China, India, Russia, Brazil, and South Africa are aware of what it means to decouple from the previous global order that was dominated by the West. Furthermore, they do more than merely advocate for growth. They're demonstrating it. For instance, China's Belt and Road Initiative is changing international trade routes while simultaneously investing billions of dollars in Africa's energy, technology, and infrastructure sectors. It's more than just talk. It has made significant expenditures in ports, power plants, highways, and railroads, laying the groundwork for Burkina Faso's long-term growth. Why is BRICS unique in this context? In contrast to the West, BRICS is not providing favors in return for power. It's giving nations like Burkina Faso a chance to develop according to their own terms. The West just cannot provide that kind of empowerment, as much as they would like to deny it. Their entire political and economic structure is set up to keep poorer countries in a cycle of dependency, not because they don't want to, some may actually care. Only in ways that serve their interests do they wish to see Burkina Faso grow. Typically, this entails maintaining access to inexpensive labor and natural resources. On the other hand, BRICS is giving nations like Burkina Faso access to capital, technology, and resources without putting them under pressure to enter into a one-sided partnership. An excellent illustration is China's investment in renewable energy in Africa. The BRICS-funded renewable energy plans in South Africa and the Garissa Solar Power Facility in Kenya are examples of solar and wind projects that are just getting started. Burkina Faso is able to access that type of assistance. The goal of these initiatives is to enable Africa to stand tall on its own, rather than constantly depending on outside forces. The kicker is this: BRICS is about power, not only projects and money. The opportunity to join a global economic system that isn't controlled by the US currency, the IMF, or Western financial institutions is being presented for the first time to nations like Burkina Faso. Major infrastructure projects throughout Africa are being financed by the new development bank NDB, which was established by the BRICS, without the strict requirements imposed by Western lenders. Although the West wishes to assist, they are unable to let go of their thirst for dominance. The foundation of their entire system is upholding power disparities. However, the foundation of BRICS is the idea that the global South can and ought to pave its own way. This type of empowerment is precisely what Burkina Faso, led by President Ibrahim Traore, is aiming for. That's what Traore has stated. His country does not wish to become just another footnote in the geopolitical playbook of the West. He is turning away from Western financial assistance in favor of alliances that defend his nation's sovereignty. The West has never prioritized that, so they're just not prepared to provide it. True independence is limited by the commitments that accompany the Western offers, even during times of goodwill. In contrast, BRICS is a group of countries that have experienced comparable hardships: India, China, and South Africa. They understand the effects of colonialism, exploitation, and marginalization by Western powers. What, therefore, can BRICS provide that the West cannot? Liberty. Not only due to economic dependence, but also because of a system that has shaped the fates of nations like Burkina Faso for far too long. Burkina Faso has the opportunity to stand with countries that are influencing the future rather than being influenced by it through BRICS. That is not possible in the West. Their DNA does not include it. They wish to assist, but they always do so on a leash. BRICS provides cooperation, mutual respect, and the means to achieve true sovereign development. And at this crucial time, Burkina Faso needs precisely that. How has the West responded to Burkina Faso joining BRICS then? In actuality, the first four nations are the largest developing nations in their respective regions. It was initially meant to serve as a counter-narrative to the widely accepted classification of highly developed industrialized nations such as the G7. Let's now examine how the West has actually responded to Burkina Faso's audacious decision to join BRICS. You'll hear all the pretentious diplomatic jargon about accepting multipolar relationships and honoring Burkina Faso's sovereign decision. But hurry up! We are aware that beneath that serene surface, much more is seething. The West is, in fact, shaken, and rightly so. This is not only a change of alliance. Burkina Faso's decision to join BRICS poses a serious threat to the long-standing international order, which has been dominated by the West for many years. Let's start by dissecting the economics of it all. Like many other African countries, Burkina Faso has long been bound to Western financial organizations such as the World Bank and the IMF. These organizations have conditions even though they are frequently presented as aiding in the development of countries. They have been utilized as instruments of influence by the West, which has imposed structural changes, demanded austerity measures, and steered nations like Burkina Faso toward economic models that put Western interests ahead of local development. It is well known that these organizations have a talent for trapping nations in a cycle of dependency. Thus, when Burkina Faso joins the BRICS, in essence, they are severing that reliance. Without the restrictive terms that are typically associated with Western financial help, they can now tap the new development bank NDB, the financial powerhouse of the BRICS countries, which provides finance for development and infrastructure. Without a doubt, the West is concerned. This goes beyond simply losing economic clout in Burkina Faso. It has to do with the wider ramifications. Who will be next to escape the financial sway of the West if Burkina Faso can? Would other African countries do the same? The meticulously crafted financial system in the West, which has been binding emerging countries to their economic models, is in danger of collapsing. The geopolitical element comes next, which is where the West becomes anxious. Western nations have viewed Africa as a strategic playground for many years. The natural resources of the continent are abundant. You name it: oil, uranium, gold. And whether it's through military installations, humanitarian initiatives, or geopolitical alliances, Western countries have always managed to keep control. Burkina Faso, however, is sending a message that Africa is not happy to play the same game by joining BRICS. Nor is this limited to Burkina Faso. Africa is moving toward the BRICS grouping, especially China and Russia, which provide more equal partnerships without the neo-colonial baggage. This is part of a larger realignment. Let's now discuss the dread that permeates Western capital cities. BRICS is more than just a political and economic alliance. The challenge is ideological. The West has promoted its brand of democracy, free markets, and human rights as the sole acceptable route to progress for many years. However, nations like Burkina Faso are now considering BRICS as a potential substitute. The principles that the West has long imposed on poor countries are not the same as those that BRICS presents to these countries. Rather, without the ideological restrictions, it provides a growth model that is more in line with the goals and requirements of nations like Burkina Faso, emphasizing trade, industrialization, and infrastructure. The West is afraid of losing control of the narrative because it has long been the judge of what development should look like. Given Burkina Faso's strong historical ties to France and the West, what prevents other countries from succeeding under the BRICS framework? The fear is existential rather than merely political or economic. It calls into question the foundation of Western domination in the world. You can bet that Western leaders are working feverishly to find ways to counteract this change behind those kind diplomatic remarks. Their public relations tactics about democracy and human rights will probably intensify, portraying BRICS as a bloc that does not share these ideals. But let's face it, control is more important here than morals. BRICS. And hence Burkina Faso's decision to join poses a danger to the very framework that has long permitted the West to retain political and economic supremacy in Africa. Furthermore, BRICS gives Burkina Faso and other African countries equality and sovereignty, things the West has never been able to truly offer. African countries have long been viewed as junior partners, with Western powers setting the parameters for political alliances and financial assistance. Conversely, BRICS positions itself as an equal collaboration. Now a member of BRICS, Burkina Faso can have a say at a table where decisions about its future aren't being made behind closed doors in London, Paris, or Washington. The West's anxiety is understandable. BRICS is about changing the balance of power in the world, not only about economic gains. It has to do with Burkina Faso declaring that we will no longer be dictated to. And the West isn't accustomed to hearing that message, particularly from Burkina Faso, a former colony. In summary, the response from the West consists of both private panic and public diplomacy. The reality is obvious, even though they may not publicly acknowledge it. Burkina Faso's accession to BRICS represents a significant setback to the Western dominance in Africa. It's an indication that the traditional global order is changing, and that African countries are searching for relationships that defend their sovereignty overseas. The reality is that as more countries, like Burkina Faso, find alternatives in BRICS, the West may not be able to maintain its influence. Will Burkina Faso be able to handle pressure from the West without the help of BRICS? As we previously discussed, Burkina Faso was covered by NDB in the situation of economic pressure. The country's partnership with BRICS would serve as a powerful counterbalance to any diplomatic isolation attempts by the West. BRICS nations, a sizable percentage of the world's population, is represented by China, Russia, India, Brazil, and South Africa, all of which have a big say in international organizations like the UN. These countries could retaliate against any attempts to delegitimize Burkina Faso internationally or impose diplomatic penalties. Diversifying its trading links through BRICS is one of the main ways Burkina Faso may resist pressure from the West. The economics of Africa, including Burkina Faso, are still heavily influenced by the West at the moment, especially the EU and France. However, Burkina Faso can create new connections and commercial avenues by joining BRICS. Burkina Faso's reliance on Western markets is lessened by the possibility of expanded commerce with the BRICS nations, and China represents a huge market for African goods. It's important to remember that the West has a history of using direct or indirect destabilizing methods to impose authority on African countries. Burkina Faso may encounter attempts to jeopardize its political stability if it becomes overly aligned with BRICS. However, Burkina Faso could access resources that give military help, information sharing, and security infrastructure as a result of BRICS, especially Russia's expanding involvement in supplying security aid to African countries. For instance, Russia's Wagner Group has already participated in security missions in other African countries, acting as a warning against outside threats. If Burkina Faso encounters attempts to overthrow its government, this is a viable alternative, even though it could cause some skepticism in the West. Lastly, Burkina Faso's decision to join BRICS changes the story globally. An increasing number of countries, especially in the global south, are rejecting development paradigms dominated by the West and searching for options in BRICS. Burkina Faso might present itself as a leader in the struggle for a multipolar global order by establishing itself as a member of this new bloc, one in which African countries are not subject to Western authority. In addition to gaining Burkina Faso allies in other African countries, this would also benefit countries in Asia and Latin America that share Burkina Faso's frustration with Western domination. With the BRICS at its side, Burkina Faso will not be standing alone if the West presses, and it may even prove resilient in the face of pressure. What do you think about Burkina Faso joining the BRICS? Is that even possible? Do you believe Burkina Faso's future is secure with BRICS? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.